No, I don't know. I told Dwayne the other night, he kind of was wanting, how hard Dad was and slave driver and that. Well, there's no getting around that, and I don't need to defend him,
Yeah.
but that's the way it was then. And for his dad and your dad and all of them, when they went to their grave, I don't really think in Mary. I don't think there's any bitterness
Oh, hey, that was...
after growing up and understanding what. They came first here, Homestead. And they wrote letters, which I think we've got at home someplace, telling my mother that the wildflowers and the grass was this tall. We'd raised potatoes, about this. I'm not one to know poetry, but this letter was poetry that she wrote to my mother. I can remember my mother telling her and I that when they got here, this is it, this is what they're looking for. And then they got the hell out. They went to California and left my mother and my dad here.
Starve.
Well, we didn't starve. We ate.
Yeah.
But that's about all. But then this other two brothers, Vince and Mark, I had always thought that both of them homesteaded on this place side by side. Because originally there was two shacks there. One was Vince's and one was Mark's. And that reservoir was always called Vince's Reservoir. Well, in looking at these things, it only shows Vince proved up, along with my folks. They did not prove up. And
They didn't live here long enough.
No, it didn't stay long. They got the hell out. And the second brother, I think now, he didn't even homestead. I think he came here late, and this land was taken up. So he just moved in with the other brother and built his shack there. And then when they went to California, they lived together and they died together. He was a bachelor too, never got married. So that's the reason his name is not on here. But yeah, we found the tank and the reservoir. Shot many ducks on that reservoir years ago when there was a lot of ducks.
Is there any ducks up there now?
Oh yeah. Down there too. That was a real sheltered thing for game and cattle in the winter in the bad weather. And a congregation place for rabbits. That was one of the places they had rabbit drives. They started, look at, here's Badger.
It's a badger.
See pretty badger? Pull over to the side, Gene, and maybe you can get out and see him dig.
Let's see if I can scare him to dig.
He's gonna run.
Hey, 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 hey.
He's gonna go to the wheat field. He's not gonna dig.
I got him. Oh, no, one look at you. Stop and
I have
dig?
seen him right in here, stop with little ones in the center of that road,
Oh, they were trying to protect the babies.
in 5 minutes bury them kids.
Yeah. they were
In
trying to-
that stuff there.
He didn't have
Just
to-
never look back at you once.
There's more life.
This rabbit drives I was
Yeah.
telling you about, that they'd form two lines quite a ways apart, so if you shot with a shotgun at the next guy, you wouldn't even hit him.
Yeah.
And worked themselves together, and the kids came behind, and you didn't shoot ahead when a rabbit, you got your line here and you're going that way. A rabbit comes, you don't shoot this way, you wait till he comes out the back and then shoot them. And the kids now, you had to watch to stay behind that firing line. Was kind of dangerous. Right in here, stop them. In the fall, there was little borrow in most of these places, on the side. And in the fall, before the snow, somebody went out and burned it was all full of tumbleweeds. They'd fill full of tumbleweeds.
Mm-hmm.
And then it would get higher than the road, and that tumbleweed would make like a fence barrier, and for snow it would
Not hold it on the road.
So you'd go out and burn these borrows out, throw a match in them. I mean, in the fall, nothing. There was so little grass in the prairie, nothing could catch fire. Well, your dad and I, we had picked rocks in this field for I don't know how many days, and when we got through with that, it was time to burn these borrows out. And him and I was burning borrows right in here. And right in here, it seems to me like it was a huge ditch, because I jumped across and I didn't make it across. I hit a rock on the other side and fell, face down in the ashes. And I don't know why, but it didn't burn my face, but both arms got, burnt. From here to the house, a stone boat we got, which is a horse and a skid
Mhm.
to haul rocks out of here. We had a gallon of lemonade. He took the gallon of lemonade and dumped it on my head. I mean, I was, and just rubbed it all over. And since lemon has been for burns to do many things, to cooling and I don't know, medicinal.
Yeah, well, yeah,
No scars. I had them in slings like this, I don't know, for a week or 10 days. Did you just take big peelings off? No scars. Doctor? So your dad was one of the first ones that,
to use the
to use lemonade that...
and the cold
and the
which-
cold,
which
yeah.
stops the
I
burn.
think that's what, it was burned bad, but it wasn't deep. It
Yeah,
was just very the
almost.
outside of the skin.
Now these rocks, is it the freezing and whatnot that keeps bringing them up?
Every year you got to pick them. And the reason, a lot of these town people come out now on roads. I'll show you some later. That they think, because it's a road, oh, somebody's been over that and there ain't no rocks in the road. Well, there probably wasn't last year, but when you got tall grass in there, my pickup ain't going to go in there unless I walk it ahead or something, because there could be hell knows what came up just this last winter in the middle of the road. If it's used each year, it's not so bad. Somebody will kick them out of the road.
Now,
Stand for you.
now is this horns fork?
Huh? Sure, for you.
I didn't know they
Oh,
forked.
there's a
Yeah.
fork.
I thought when they say I thought it was just
Yeah,
straight up.
No, there's a secondary
There's
one, not
prongs.
very big.
Yeah.
Well, that's a pronghorn stance. If there's 5 of them there, you shoot this first one, and he looks over at the one that dropped him. You shoot the next one. That's why I never was much to hunt antelope. And Fritz used to love that. Another maybe 100 feet ahead, just below the break of this hill here. That was the first homestead house. Yeah, that's the homestead. And Charlie Glores now. You see that tree out there? That one tree? That's Charlie Glores. Many times I rode the horse. Somebody was there for company, and you like a couple ducks, Dad? Yeah, go get a couple ducks. Get on the horse, right with a 22, right over to. The ducks then weren't scared, didn't get shot at much. You want 1, 2, or 3, go nothing to it, and come back. And of course, at this time I'm talking about too, the only thing that was planted was this right here, this section here, to the bottom of the hill where the granaries are there, in a straight line out toward that other road. And there was a strip in here from, someplace in here, back maybe 2 of these strips down toward Paul's Reservoir. All the rest of this, instead of looking green like it is now, was all prairie.
The sagebrush and
Yeah.
was in the little cactus. Was that in
Yeah,
That
little
little-
yeah.
that little prickly pear?
Look at that vehicle up there. See that north line? You see that dome there, the tallest hill
Yeah.
that's there? The Homestead north line is just over that hill and in the flat a little bit, going east and west. Same that we're here, or in other words, 1 mile from here.
Yeah, right. So they actually had to one way or another clear that land before they could plant it. That was their proving. Then is somehow cleaning out the sagebrush and the cactus and getting it to
Yes.
plowing it with horses, breaking
Yes.
it up.
Breaking the ground.
Yes.
That must have been a chore,
Oh, with horses, and
And the
tools they
land
had
here.
then. Now I told you, this road section
around
goes
it,
straight.
yeah.
It goes around that hill. See, it's a little
Yeah.
too steep. That's the steepest hill around here. Now you see all these trees down here.
Mm-hmm.
This was our closest neighbor. This was Pearson. And I told you where Charlie rented and worked for Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
And where Esther fell in the well.
Yeah.
Well, it's on the break of that hill there, which is absolutely gone now. It's all farmed. I'm sure you couldn't find a thing. But they went in. You see that corral up there?
Mm-hmm.
Just past that, a right angle in, which is in line with those olive trees. And
okay.
the olive trees are planted all along that road. They're the only thing that
That's
makes this winter's no matter. Russian olive, they make the winters. And they're a windbreak. And you see down there in the flat on the left in this side of the house,
Mm-hmm.
well, all of those were planted, and next to them on the east side, there was some fruit trees. The only ones that really made anything was crab apples. I mean, they're about that big, a wild crab apple.
Yeah.
But there was some fruit trees in there that would live a few years and die. And then east of that, there was a big chunk of them again for wind protection, which you'll see now. I can see in later years with so much rain, they're all rotted out. They're all dead. They're gone.
Now, does the weather come
from the, I would have
As a
thought it
rule,
comes
from right
north-
in there, same as at home, northwest.
northwest. Okay.
As a rule,
Yeah.
but it can change 180 and from there and stake your claim.
The land office.
This is where the borrow for sand and gravel, and I'm sure what was made in that house. And not just that, but in recent years, I know he said that Paul built a big metal shop. No washing, no nothing. The damn concrete's still good. I don't know how potent they. Okay, I finished my itinerary.
You made it.
Yeah.
Now the barn over on the right, that was a house that got moved over here.
No.
No?
It's built, and that's a barn.
Well, I thought it had a stairway inside. If I remember, I thought it had
Might be. There was a hayloft up in the top.
Oh, okay.
Now you see here, you can see some old trees, scrubs over there yet.
Yeah.
But you see that fence line here?
Yeah.
Well, that was the road that we used to go out. And the reason they moved. Oh, wait till you get down there. The reason they moved it to here, that road was below that hill there, which is all sand. And sometimes you had to shovel sand. Those cars didn't go through sand with them little narrow tires then. So you had to shovel sand to get down to where there was some gravel to go to town. If the wind blew bad, you had to shovel sand to get back in. Then in the wintertime, the snow is the same thing, only worse. You got to town, you didn't want to stay long, because the longer you stayed, the more shoveling you had to do when you got out here. Now the old wagon used to be out in here. And I suppose somebody is...
Oh, no, there it is.
Oh, there it is.
There?
There it is.
It's still
I don't
there.
know. When Paul moved from the valley out here, his hired man and a team of horses had one of them, and I had a team of horses and one of them, and followed him from Chinook to here, cross country. Cross country, from Chinook to here, cross country.
You pick up the line.
No, none of this ziggy-zaggy. I'll show you later where. No ziggy-zaggy.
You knew the land enough to do it.
Well, there was a road, a trail, but it was on fence lines, section lines.
Yeah.
Means it was not. You couldn't get lost. Just let the horse go. I know sometimes we got off and walked alongside, and huh?
I was talking about
Yeah, that's it. Well, no, I don't know. There were two. Well, there were two, but in thinking later, I really think Paul only owned one.
Borrowed
I
one
think
from something.
that hired man went back with the other team, and I think probably the wagon he took back was borrowed from, the neighbor or somebody.
Yeah.
Do you think in California you could run into some guy like this, though, on this same situation, and he'd tell you, go look the place over and take what you want? Huh? Yeah, the pigs are out. Well, we went out to his place the other day, and his wife was there, and she says, there's only one thing out there. She says, I begged them to save. And she says, you won't guess what that is. No, I don't know what that is. Well, she says, that outhouse is so unique. She says, I told them that I wanted them to pick that up and put it, someplace where it was on a foundation. I think it's a little late.
Yeah.
That's the Honigheitchen.
You probably can do it.
Honigheitchen. Yeah, the shit house.
Yeah.
Worms.
Now you say something, Johnny.
Hello there.
Okay, yeah. So let's put this in here. So you just talk to the pigs and call them once.
Pig, 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 pig. Sue pig, Sue pig, Sue pig. Pig, 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 pig. Sue pig. Boy, have you got a deal. Oh man, am I in heaven. Look at that one.
Oh, dear, I love it.
Hi, guy.
Hot day? Not here.
Ooh, look at the mud.
I thought that they were.
Stucco. All the wind, weather, and huh?
Yeah.
There's houses that are 15 years old that look worse than that. But now you see these olive trees. It was on both sides, and this used to be all olive trees. From a distance here in there, to as a windbreak to the piece that was in the center there.
So now, was this where the garden was then?
No. I'll show you where the garden was.
Oh, okay.
Now there was two gardens. One garden down here, the main garden, and the potato garden was, if you remember when we go out, I'll show you, was on the other side of the road, past the top of the hill.
Oh.
Dad, for some reason, this potato bug business and that,
Yeah.
and diseases, you got to keep the potatoes separate from everything else. I don't know if
Yeah.
it was true or not. Nobody else did,
Yeah.
but that was always the potato thing up there. And also, when you came back from school and you got to pick tomato, you had your can already there with the kerosene in it, and you went to pick potato bugs. And as I can remember, I mean, they looked like, them potato vines looked like, oh God, I mean, you looked at one vine, you know, and I can't say there were hundreds, but they were just lousy with potato bugs on it. And to pick them cotton picking things, you know, even as a kid with fingers. We'll show you at Delbert's. The other garden, you see that ditch there?
Yeah.
That dike?
Yeah.
Well, all the water from, we'll go on the other side there, all the water from that whole drainage thing up there, that's the low spot. It drained down in there. Now, I think that, you know, in years gone by, all the very cream of the topsoil that was up in there washed down in here,
Yeah.
and was a garden spot bar none, you know. It not only had the best soil, but it had the most water down in here. And if there was ever a rain later on, it got down in here too. So it was an ideal.
There's one picture that I think shows a part of the garden in the house, if I remember right, somewhere in one of the pictures that I've seen. So that had to be from that direction.
The only thing that was out in here, in the other end there was a kind of a square patch that was a dandelion patch. You know what dandelions are?
Yeah.
And they made dandelion wine, they made root beer, they made beer. And as dandelions, you got your 5-gallon bucket and you didn't stop until you filled the bucket. Well, picking dandelions didn't take too long to fill that bucket because they were like fluff, you know. And you had to show it to your dad, and I got my bucket full. Well, that's fine. Well, I can't say that he stepped in it. I don't remember that. But I can remember taking the handle and give it one like that, and here you go again, fill it up. And those damn things, you know, that, why hell, you only had that much on the bottom of the darn thing again. Of course, it didn't take long to fill it, and finally, I think you never did get the bucket full. Finally, he relented, and okay, that's enough, and you went on from there. This in here was an alfalfa patch, such as it was. I mean, never irrigated, and pig pasture. This in here was sectioned off into pigs.
Was there lots of water in it?
No water. Only water was in a well, and not much there. That hill at that time was our dump, thrashing machines and all the old equipment. You know, the whole. This here I was.
Long since. Right?
Yeah, to my thinking, ours was a little more that side. And when the war came along, they came out here, and man, they, you know, for metal, was worth, I don't know how much a ton, and they wanted it. I mean, some of the farmers, well, they didn't want you to take that and that. Well, you know, the war is on, and you know, and they come through here and they cleaned everything out. There was nothing left of anything metal.
Yeah.
Went. Why it's here yet? Well, I think we said that most of them didn't elevate or graduate from the homestead shack to the next one.
Yeah.
This is not the homestead shack. The homestead shack, Gene, was, you see how that hill breaks there?
Yeah.
Right in the top? Well, it was right, I would say, right in that, kind of looks light, a little bit light in there. Right in there. And at one time there was, like timbers, old redwood. I think the foundation of it was made out of maybe railroad ties. I don't know if they're really railroad ties, but the size of that. And they were laying there, well, for years and years until they finally evaporated.
I mean, that was a real graduation.
Oh, for the whole country out here.
Yeah.
You know, if you could get a picture of back then, where the next house would have been to look similar to it, I don't know.
No.
Often he's got so much acreage, you never catch up. You're always behind. There's just no, there just isn't time for it, I guess, Gene. No, that was the milk. And the carbide light thing, that's where the milking was done.
So they put the lath on, then they must have plastered it on the inside for the insulation.
I guess.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Mud swallows paradise.
Oh yeah. I don't see no gas line. Well, you'd have to go.
Line still there?
Well, I think it would be on the other side. I said milking in here. Milking was over there. Is there a hole there? In the house, you can still see the lines where the gas lines were, you know,
Yeah.
for the carbide.
Boy, here's the slide the door. They knocked that off.
There's your carbide.
Oh.
I said over there, I missed it a little.
Yeah.
I'll be damned.
Valve still works.
Valve still works.
Those are the things that your dad did that just is so far, you know, I mean, for as tough and as tight and as conservative to do that, I mean, that's the part, doesn't, you know what I'm saying?
I know. I don't know.
I
don't know.
It's a mystery.
You know, as slave driver as he was and had to be,
yeah.
this don't fit in with that.
No.
Would be nothing, bare bones, you know.
Yeah. And to have this, and like the house, I mean, could have made a, I mean, your mom could have worked in a lot less. I mean, I'm sure that house is as much for her as it was for anybody, you know.
Yeah. No, for carbide, nobody. Yeah. Nobody. Here's the old carbide thing, dear, where the lamp was still set. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the barn?
Yeah.
No. Nobody. Nobody. And when you say Dad on this carbide thing, well, it had to be that when he bought them from, like I told you, from medicine, you know, a wagon, a guy come in and he's got a new copper pot here, an aluminum pan, and different thing. Not a whole.
That whole system, because I mean that had a bell.
Well, I don't think he had that on there. He probably had a demonstrator or something, and then you would have to order the pot, whether it, this and how many fixed. No, he didn't have all that along here. I'm sure of that. But I'm saying that's where that stuff came from. That and the rubber bathtub and many other things that a guy come down in the wagon, and I say the first thing he'd hit here, man, where a kid is out there, you know, come here, kid, come here. Want some gum? And he give you a pack of this penny gum that, you know, first when you get in your mouth and you can't open your, and taste funny, you know. I don't remember what you did with it. I think probably spit it out quick. And then he's got questions, you know, looking for, you got any aluminum pots, copper pots? There was different things. He had a whole list of things.
He was looking.
Yeah, and then you see this over here, see this candy over here? You know, it's penny candy. You get a couple of copper pots or something, then you can get some of this candy here. That was, we worked in the kid the first. And then when the old man got here, then, you know, here's what I got to show you, you know.
Yeah.
That's the garden spot to the right of that tank. Was perfectly flat. But it gets the water and the drainage you see from this whole area up in here. And I think at the same time the sediment and loam or whatever was,
whatever little topsoil they had.
was washed down in here, and that's the best part of the garden, best part of the whole.
Now, when they hit the pile of rocks, that's just a place where they just pick a spot and like out in the middle out there?
No, usually that pile of rocks is if you can see it, or if you maybe have to dig in there. There's a big one in there that can't get out, can't be moved.
So then they pile
That's a
all the
rock
rest
pile.
around it.
Yeah.
That's how.
On some of the places, that's where the well was, or it was, the old well was filled. The wells were filled in with to keep from caving in for cattle and that. On the old homestead places, you find a pile of rock. Well, that's herds or heshes or so on. Fritz knew every one of them, every foot of it. Businessman in that day and age, you know. Today's day and age, he'd be, you know, he didn't have the education or he had the background or anything else.
Yeah.
But I guess some of my mother and my dad's what do you call it? Guts and gumption, not to be afraid to be willing to work, do it, huckily buck. You know, that's the key. It is today.
Yeah.
It is today. Spot now went from about that fence line over there, and this fence line here, and was in that just in that green thing down there. Now, at that time, this ditch was probably, we took I as a kid could take a wheelbarrow and go from the garden and right up over the top of this and over there to with the vegetables and that. So it was only maybe
they
just
burned it. They
yeah,
burned it up since
and it was flat back here also. This has been borrowed now and built up on here to build this thing up. talked of being an Indian. It's one of the highest, if you get on top of that, that's
Yeah.
one of the highest points any place around here.
Mhm.
Although there was no monument of any kind on top of that thing. But somehow it was talked about as kids in school and so on, that that was a monument that
Some sacred.
Indians built most of their
Where-
burials on the top, on a highest point in a given area.
Ah. Now where was?
Story about Shorty Olson with a 5-cent cigar, you know?
Yeah.
Did I tell you?
I don't know.
Well, one of these bachelors out here, I told you where Charlie Glores is here,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Well, probably maybe 2 to 3 miles in the same direction, he would stop at Charlie Glores on his way to here, was Shorty Olson's. And I don't know what he did. I don't know how he lived. I don't think he had a horse. He had nothing. But pretty regularly he'd come over for Mom for home-cooked meal.
Yeah.
And this one time was real early in the spring. I think she remembers Mom telling that story.
I remember you telling the story.
No, remember Mom telling? No, Grandma?
Yeah, she probably did.
She loved to have somebody come and smoke that cigar. Anybody, any of the bachelors that come, the first thing, and they'd look. You could just about anticipate, you know, they're going to get their cigar. And she loved that smoke of that White Owl cigar.
Really?
For somebody, oh yeah, she was a.
So she kept them here for them.
She kept them, buy them by the box too.
Yeah.
Not one or two. It was a White Owl box sitting on a little counter in there. Well, anyhow, he would walked over this time, and it was spring, thaw, but there was still ice on the pond. And and so when he left, he smoked one while he was here, and when he left, of course, he gets one to take home. And he fired that up, and she told him, now don't go on the bank, Shorty, don't go through because the ice is kind of thin. Oh, don't worry. Well, he was short. He's a little bitty guy. And he took off, and I can see him out through the window yet. Mom's waving to him and going, plunk, and holding the cigar up, you know, coming back to my mom, you know.
Don't ruin the cigar.
Done ruin the cigar, no. She dug clothes out and changed his clothes, and away Shorty Olson went. You know. Dwayne's dad, Charlie,
Yeah.
Most of his work was done in town. He had a service station of his own a couple times, pumping gas and grease job, you know, minor repairs. But when he didn't have his own, he worked for one of the main ones still in town now is Heltney, and he was mechanicking and never owned a place. So he rented these. This had been left by the people who owned it originally, Pearson's, which is on the thing, and I think the only one that was ever there after that was him. So I don't know what the rent was. I'm sure a few bucks a month, couldn't beat it, you know.
Yeah.
And he rented that thing, and then Martha and Paul, when they needed help, he helped them. Paul had even worked milk and butter for a period of time, tried it. So Charlie did some of the milking for him.
Yeah.
And when they went on a vacation or went away, he came over here and took care of the place. Well, this one day he went to work in town, was gone all day, come home close to dark at night, and when he got home, no Esther. Couldn't find Esther. She wasn't there. So he walked from the house down toward their well too was down toward the low spot down here toward that, maybe from here to the house, away from the house, the well. And he walked down there and looked, couldn't find anything, but he's on the way back to the house and he heard something, you know. Well, he went down where the well was and there's some old planks on top and they were broke and Esther's in the well. And he come over to get Paul, and I don't know how they had a hell of a time getting, and she'd been in there all day. She was a big lady, not I wouldn't say fat, but a big woman, which is all that saved her in that cold water.
Yeah.
And it was deep enough that she couldn't touch bottom. She had to, you know, on the sides of the hand dug well to hold herself in there. And so for years, always after that was when anybody went to Charlie's, if you're going to Charlie's, don't drink the water because Esther'd been in the well. Get a woman to come out in this godforsaken country at that time. I think I told you about the school teacher staying here, you know, and later they made a teacherage over there. We'll show you where it is. And to live out there, well, this one had a sister that was crippled, we think with polio. You know, there was 2 of them, but even then. And we used to hear once in a while, some of the old schoolmates used to come out by, you know, certain nights at It wasn't all lonely, but God, how far in between.
Oh, yeah. I could understand. I mean, after a while.
Of course, with the school teacher living here, you know, and Fritz and Charlie were old enough to, there was extra curricular too that many times had been, I can't document, but I'm.
Is that extra homework?
Number of years that was a hay loft, and you put hay up there for the winter. The first time that I remember the real advancement in hay thing was when I came and helped Paul was out of school, you know, and came up here in the summer and worked with him. Now I don't know who come up with it, but it was brand new then. They had you had a wagon, a hay barge, which had a high thing on one side, you know, bed,
Yeah.
and low on the other side, and that's where you pitched it into there
Yeah.
on the low side. Well, then, you know, and that time Paul's dad worked with us too. He was pretty elderly, but worked the tail off you. But he was scared to death of snakes. Oh God! I mean, and that year the snakes. When you left the tractor, you know, you'd go to eat lunch. You left the tractor, and when you come back, first thing you did, take a handful of gravel and throw it underneath there, because they're sure as hell. Or pick up anytime you left it for shade. Anytime you left a piece of machinery, there was at least one, maybe more than one, underneath there. And I mean snakes, not like what Delbert had last night. Well, this time I came, Paul had this new innovation. You had the same wagon, but both sides were the same height, and in the bottom of it there was a thing like a cargo net. You know what a cargo net is? Mm-hmm. Well, that thing was affixed at the back of the wagon, and then laid up in here and up on the headboard of the wagon. There was a little thimble up there thing.
Yeah.
So you pitched into this one. You pitched into the sides, or you pitched in the back. Whatever. You got tired pitching on the side, then you went on the other side, so you pitched the other way. Then you pitched in back, because it helped a lot, you know. Yeah. Well, when you got the hay then to where you wanted to dump it on the other side here, you had a big steel stake driven in the ground, and you took a piece of rope and went from the ring on the front of this cargo net and tie it around this stake, and then drive ahead, and that cargo net, you know, just went on up and peeled it up and dumped that hay. Well, it didn't stack it, you know. Of course, the next time you rammed that thing back in here as much as you could,
Yeah.
and it rolled up over this roll and rolled up over a couple. It made a half-assed haystack, and then to finish it off, you brought some in and then hand-pitched it to kind of.
Yeah.
But that was unloading, hay unloader. This first year I came to help Paul at the start of the war, boy, I mean, they was after these guys to plant different things. One of them was flax.
Oh,
For linseed oil was a shortage in the war. I don't know what they used it for. And Paul and nobody out here ever planted flax. It was a new thing. I don't know what, but he planted Charlie Glores over there in flax. And to harvest that, you know, you got a combine then that cuts the grain and lays it on a belt, and that belt takes it into the machine that separates the. Well, flax, even the seed, you can drown in it. If you get a tank and you get in there, they say you can drown in it.
Oh, just go. Yeah.
You go down. Now I won't swear to that, but I know I tried it as a kid, just in where it's shallow, and yeah, it's like water. So is the stalks in that slick. And some reason that machine, it would plug. This belt would take this stuff into this rollers here, and the roller wouldn't. It wouldn't go in. So Paul come up with the idea. He made a little tin thing here that you put your ass on, and I got a broom, and you're sitting in this machine. You know, this is going and not in smooth ground. You're sitting here with a broom, giving it this stuff to get that stuff to go in that machine, and all of this crap that's going here, the chafe and stuff that come out. God, you know, your nose would get so sore that at night it hurt to breathe. You know, it was just like raw in that thing in there.
Yeah. Well, because that's.
That done 2 or 3 things. One was for when the thrashers went through, you know, to do the thrashing at your place and this place. Well, that was one. One of the second things that was mainly used for was killing. You know, in the fall, as soon as it started to cool off real good, a lot of that meat was hung. God, I don't know, for a long time, and it kept. I don't remember a piece of meat being thrown away.
Yeah.
But there'd be a certain thing. There'd be a mark on the calendar of when the punk was going to be at Naber's. You know what a punk is?
Well, that's the thing you burn is.
Well, this punk is the guy that plunk,
Oh.
and he's the guy that, with the moon and the weather's going to. This is the time to kill and make sausage, and they'll bleed right, and the sausage will turn out, and on and on and on and on. So there'd be a certain day that the punk's going to be here. Well, the day the punk was here, and that was Uncle Henry.
Oh.
Uncle Henry was the punk.
Did that go with the moon?
Went with the moon, yeah.
They-
Well, he had his own. I don't know if he really said what. He'd tell you on the 22nd, we're going to be here, okay, and Montgomery's going to be here, yeah, and Gerald and so on, and yeah, okay. Well, that wasn't all done in one day. You know, the first day the killing was done, and scalding of the hogs and gutting them and so on, and they were hung. And mainly, don't waste the blood. I mean, if you got the blood, if you lost the blood, that's what these marks are up here. The tailbone is not quite that bad, but almost. I mean, it was a sin.
She'd mix it
Oh,
with-
yeah.
and,
So then the second day, well, these guys stayed overnight. You know, there was different ones come, and then the next 3 days later, we're going to be at Montgomery's, and well, no storm there because we only got one hog and one of this. Well, you can bet at the Neighbors. I don't remember. Well, there was hogs all over here. I don't know how many they killed, and some was sold and went to town right away too for other people to do their own sausage making. But
Well, I remember Daddy saying he never ate head cheese.
Me either. No, I won't either. No. Plenty on the outside. But the punk, that was the punk's job, and he was pretty important. You know, this was no, there
knew
was
how to
no,
do it,
we'd
but-
like to do it later. No. Hey, this is the 22nd, and this
But
is
he
this
killed
is
them
it.
right so
Yeah,
that
and he
they-
had a little 22 that it was a single shot, and where the trigger was got a kind of funny configuration that breaks like this.
Yeah.
And that son of a bitch, if you pulled the trigger wrong and it wasn't closed completely, I'll tell you, it pinched, you know. When I'd sneak that thing off and use it and wasn't supposed to nobody's supposed to know about it. And that thing would flop up there, you know, and God, pinch you. The first time I remember shooting, well, killing anything, I used to, unbeknownst to the folks, of course, or anybody else, my brothers knew, they knew, I'd take the 22 and go up over the hill in this where this flat was down there, because shoot in there, you couldn't hear, and plink over there. And this one day, sometime later, that my mother's out in the patch, and I don't remember what it was, this rabbit was, every day, I mean, it was just he'd go so far, and the next day, you know, more and more, made my mother sick. This one day we get out there, and she said, there's that rabbit again. And I said, oh, wait a minute, I'll get the gun. Get the gun? You don't know how to do that, do you? Wouldn't worry. Well, in the bunkhouse, it was a gun. I got the 22, and you know, from the bank, I don't know how far he was away. I think he was almost tame at that time. Plink, and you know, he starts. I don't know how. First thing I ever killed, but I guess you knew how to sight it and line it up, because over the fence, all I was doing was plinking. Yeah, I don't know, hawk. You know, the hawk went by or whatever. That was my first.
Was she impressed?
Oh yeah. And where did you learn how to? When you been doing this? You know. And I must have been 6 or 7. You know, I know it wasn't 8 because we left when it was 8. Wow. Yeah. I don't know where it was. Here's one of the old cottonwoods.
Yeah.
And there should be another one over there that, God, through the years, you know, sometimes it got so cold they exploded. The limbs
Oh, because
from the sap, it's just like they blew up, all but the main trunk, and then they come back.
Now, did you call that the ice house?
That's the ice house. Yes, and that's
And
the
where-
cistern.
Oh, okay.
That's the cistern. And that cistern, it didn't rain often, but when it rained, I mean, there was nobody, the old man didn't holler, hey, you know, get the thing. It was generally understood, oh, so-and-so is already cleaning. It was a natural thing that you went out and checked that gutters that get every drop that you can in that cistern of rainwater, and that's what you drank out of, the drinking water. And in snow, when there was plenty of snow, was no problem. You just, around here, no yellow snow. It was just, it all went in there. And toward the end of when it started to really thaw, The last snow, I mean, you went around and got bits and pieces of a little shovel here and to get as much as you could in there to, that was good drinking water. And after that, you drank the stuff that burned your throat out here. We'll come out there, Gene. Ice that went in here now was cut in Charlie Glor's reservoir, which you can get some kind of an idea when we get out here and show you on the road. We're not going to walk to there, where Charlie Glor's reservoir was. But to cut it over there, and with a stone boat now, not a wagon, it was a stone boat, which was real low, no lifting, just sliding it on there, and haul that cross country over here, get it in there, and the kids, then you had straw out here, each little chink, each little crack, just pound straw in it.
So you made it solid, so there's no open, so then
no open, yeah. And we had year-round. 4th of July, there was usually some doings here, some demonstration with the farm advisor. One of them, one time I can remember, was caponing chickens. Do you know capon chickens? Yeah. Well, this was the latest. Man, you get these chickens, I'll tell you, they're going to be so big, and in 3 weeks they're going to lay eggs. And well, anyhow, Ben Daggett, the local agriculture man, good friends with the folks, because he'd talk the folks into, we'd like to do, oh yeah, bring them out, and people from town. Even then, that was quite a trip, out here. A number of times we had an airplane. A guy flew an airplane out here. Orville Sands, land just on the other side of the garden.
Well, is that where the airstrip was?
No, there was no airstrip. It was just there.
No, but I mean that Davis.
No, the airstrip he had. I told you where the section line is on the other side of the hill there.
Yeah.
Well, that section line going here, the airfield was straight up here.
Oh, okay, so it's quite a ways. I just always thought it was near here. Yeah.
No, up there it was flatter for one thing.
Yeah.
There was no rocks, but the second thing, there was gravelly enough, not sand, because you land them suckers in sand and you can't get out.
Yeah.
Okay. You sit there and you won't go out. But this guy would land this thing, old hard wheels, dual biplane.
Yeah.
Gordon Sand, and he'd fly out here. I mean, oh boy, this was a real deal. Everybody around the plane, the hell with everything else. Well, anyhow, they had this caponing of chickens, and it went real well that day. I know as us kids, we caught the chickens and put them up on the thing, and I don't remember what they did. Something under the wing, I think.
Yeah, there's something that they
slice it.
Yeah.
But the next morning that we came out, and God, the chickens. There was 2 over there, and they all. I think everyone died. Didn't do too good. In fact, if I remember, and this guy, this Ben Daggett, he'd come out about late in the afternoon, and of course my dad, first thing, do you like a couple of ducks? Yeah, a couple of ducks. Well, I had to go and get them damn ducks and bring. If I remember right, I think the duck thing, that ended the ducks. I don't think he got any more after that. Now, you asked about that carbide plant.
Yeah.
I don't know. When we go in, we can kind of look. The carbide plant was right where that biggest bunch of tufts is there.
Yeah.
And this was a thing about this big around and about this tall, sheet metal. The last we seen it was in there. You could read the name of the whole thing on the sheet metal. There was not a speck of rust anyplace. It was buried in the ground, and then it had a bellows. It had a tank down here and a tank up here that was turned upside down that went up and down inside this thing, right? And then it had a hopper up on top that you dumped 50 pounds of a full can of carbide in. And when the gas pressure went down, the bellows went down, and that opened the hopper up to let the carbide in. And then the bellows came up and shut the carbide off, and I don't ever remember trouble with it. Or we always had people that at night, that first time they would come here, no matter who it was or where it was, what is that? This carbide light. They never seen it before. All the trees that was around here then that dropped the leaves, you raked leaves. This was another chore that was was permanent. I mean, it wasn't a day-by-day thing. It was every day. You raked up, especially under the cottonwoods, all of these leaves, because you wanted to get about 2 feet of leaves on top of that tank, so it didn't freeze in the wintertime. If it froze, I don't know, it'd bust that. It never froze.
Yeah,
God, I can
well, it wouldn't. One way or another, it'd stop it.
It heated it. As kids, they always used to like to play on there until you got hell. And watch this, get in the leaves and lay down. Oh man, like a sauna thing coming through that thing. You can imagine, with saving all the leaves. You saved them. That's where they went. So that line must go in the house there. We seen it upstairs the other day, where the line is, but the fixtures are, it's too bad.
Yeah.
There was a stove in here. I remember the stove. Marcel tells us it was one of a beautiful one, you know, with all of the fancy, not just a plain one, fancy one.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know why they would have had a fancy one. You'd think they'd have the most simple.
Yeah.
But no, he says, I remember the stove, but I don't remember. But one winter, the Hutterites, he claims, come down and
Well,
they ran.
Who?
Yeah, he said Hutterites.
Oh, he said the
Oh yeah, yeah. And took the whole thing, and probably took that carbide thing as well.
Yeah,
And years ago, on that wall and that wall, there were bunks, just boards, no mattress, no springs, or too high bunks there and there. I don't think this leaks bad yet today. You know, he's talking about. He says his son is thinking of raising this up and putting a good foundation underneath and retaining it, which would be nice.
For what? This house?
This
Uh-huh.
for harvesting. When they harvested, they didn't do your own.
Oh, so
You got the neighbors coming, yeah, machinery-wise and the horses and so on. Well, this was the bunkhouse where they stayed, and where the killing was done. Actually, the punk, when he came and did the killing and the sausage making and that, he stayed here, and whoever the neighbors helped that day or the 2 days, and then the third day you went to someone. Yeah. This was a porch. I can remember we had one of the family's Friesens, I told you, that lived that way, and they walked from there to here, and then we walked from here to school. And when they came here, it was a rest stop kind of. You just didn't take off from here, and they set their lunch boxes here on the porch. Well, I know when I was at school, these kids, they always wanted to trade sandwiches. You know, I'll trade you this, you know, for this. Well, I never did trade, but I seen what they had. They had 2 slices of bread and that thick of lard. That was daily, every kid, and they had about 5 or 6 kids. And I told my mother that. Well, I think I had probably told my mother, you know, these kids always want to trade sandwiches, you know, and well, what do they have? And I told her, you know, 2 slices of bread. No, it's not lard. It's got to be something else in there. Well, I can remember her this one day. The kids were gone, and I caught her, and she would open the lunchbox to see what, and told me, yeah, 2 slices of bread and big thick lard, yeah.
Yeah. Something different.
This was the milk room. Separator, hands
Oh, yeah.
to separate the milk and the cream, and where she made the butter, and that was the milk room. This again, the finish, you know, the protection that paint has given that wood, or if it needed it, unbelievable. Central heating.
Yeah.
There was a thing on the wall right there. That's the damper control.
So that was your
I
thermostat.
wouldn't get both together. I would stay.
Yeah.
Don't.
I was feeling if she
Okay,
did.
but I say I wouldn't get 2 of us. Now that's an electric heater that you see. Martha and Paul lived here for years before they lived in town. They lived here.
Oh, okay.
After we left, they lived in here.
That's right. Yeah.
So they had, but they didn't have electricity then. Later, way late. Not too long, he had a wind charger, batteries,
Yeah.
and batteries in the basement.
Huh.
But I mean, this is after they had electricity, which these swallows want to get in here too.
Yeah.
Here's where the bathtub was.
Oh, right here.
Yep, rubber bathtub, one after the other. Yeah, I've yet to find anybody that, did you have a rubber bath? No, we had a round tub.
There's several vents on the floor.
Well, because the heat was downstairs and just.
There's a duct down there. A furnace was down there, the coal furnace, and the heat came up.
It wasn't any blower. It was just.
No, natural. Later, that was a bathroom that Paul put in. We didn't have, ours was outside. That was put in.
Oh, so that was closed down
you're coming in here with my.
This was the master's bedroom. This was
They
the
even
folks.
had a closet. We didn't
Huh?
have a closet.
Oh, but now the stairway went through the master bedroom.
Yeah, up right here. Yeah, 2520 always hung over there, never got used with
That
that.
way the kids couldn't get out in the middle of the night, see, and sneak out. They had to come through the parents' bedroom.
I've heard that too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead and I'll.
Go ahead.
Let me go first. Huh?
Well, up there, don't two of you get in one
On the
place
same
for
step
sure. On the floor.
At a time.
That's where he and I got the other day, and I didn't like the.
Oh no, I'm
The
going to
feel
look
of
up there, but I'm not going to walk across.
What?
What?
What kind of poop is this?
Kind of poop?
Yeah.
Big.
You
Oh,
look like
pig.
dogs.
Oh,
Pig, dear. Oh, probably. Well,
no, no pigs up there.
no, yeah, it does look like.
It's all in one place.
Possum, coon,
No, there's more over there.
skunk.
I don't remember this.
That's what they'll do, all in one spot.
I don't remember this being here the other time.
No, I don't.
Was it?
No, I don't. I don't. No, I don't remember. It could have been. It must have been.
Somebody must have put it there. Maybe to protect that grill that somebody will step on it.
That's where there's a wall underneath. Actually, why don't you walk there? We didn't go clear to the other end. I don't know what that is, Gene.
Yeah.
No, you don't need to go up again there. And the contraction and expansion, and how in the hell is it hold together? And the unclean mortar and cement that they made it out of then. They did not have washed stuff.
No. It does.
It's incredible.
Huh?
When was it built? What year was it built?
Well, I think in 29.
We were told 1929.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have any-
It's a
And the
nice-
poor old Honeyheisen, I can't give you a tour of that.
I want to look in there though. If that's got a seat.
It's called a Honeyheisen?
Honeyheisen.
Honeyheisen.
Yeah.
Now, you know, at the camp,
Open the door. I would watch where you're stepping. I don't know how deep that.
because it's in the hole now, huh?
Oh, that ain't the one we had.
Okay, so that's a replacement.
No, we had it was a two-staller, just a, yeah, that's a
Bench with the two.
Now, it's
Yeah.
interesting the things that we want to save.
shed and the granary. And the pigeon house. Pigeon house. I say, Grandma sold squabs,
Yeah.
and I don't recall, but I'm sure that she could sold more than what she had.
Yeah.
Because, and to pick them things, God, the pin feather. So when you went in there, she needs 4 squabs. Well, you went in there and picked out 4 that's going to make that order, and you looked in each of the nests and felt in there about, what's it going to be for next weekend or next Saturday, and a week from now, how many will be ready then. So she knows.
So she could sell that.
Yeah, so she could sell them. Yeah, but
Now, what is that? Were they roosted or?
That's
Yeah.
where they went in and out.
that was their house.
Then he closed them in at night. That's how you.
Well, you closed them in just when you wanted to catch them.
So they wouldn't get out.
Yeah, and that dirt and the crap, would fly in there.
Dusty.
Yeah. Yeah. Still here, a hollow that was sage hen hollow. You could go over there during sage hen season, and it was just full of them. They congregated there, just congregated. And however many you wanted to shoot, before you went over, they'd get 3 or 4 or whatever. Well, they'd take off. One would take off, bang. Another one would take off, bang. Third one would take off, bang. That's only 3 shots. So help me God, they must have been trained. They stopped until you reloaded, and
Then he'd wait for them.
dumb.
So when he did where he worked, was this
Who?
what Grandpa worked, what he planted, was like down.
Was from that fence line about to this fence line here.
Okay, so did actually that much up there.
Over.
There's so many acres you had to do, wasn't it? to prove it as a certain
Yeah,
portion? Or?
yeah. When we go home, I don't know, we have to see too. A lot of them put in irrigation ditches, you know,
Mhm.
along hills and that. There was no water, I don't know what that, but they put irrigation ditches. There's one place down there, I tried the other day and I couldn't spot it. Either it's on the edge of Vince's place or the next place. And it used to be very obvious before. I mean, for a long ways, you can see goddamn irrigation. What the hell is that for? But many places they did that.
They just figured that they thought maybe it was going to happen, huh?
No, they didn't. Nah.
Just put it in for part of the...
Yeah, it was
You had to
it was
do that
for
part of the rule.
proven up. Yeah, proven up. They spent so many hours, or I don't know, you know.
Now, is that where God, that's a home.
Can you imagine them suckers though? I say I've seen them in a road and they're mean. They'll sit right there and look at you, you know, and take off and bury them kids.
Here? That's where's
Badger.
the badger hole?
Yeah, and what they're after, that's a gopher hole here. So he's a meat eater. I wished I could have stopped that guy down there and seen him,
Yeah.
had you seen him dig.
He's smooth.
Of course, it wouldn't have been much in that soft ground where it's
No,
fun
he
to,
just-
yeah.
But that's how they protect themselves.
But it wasn't uncommon to go to town and see one of them, and always with little ones, I don't know, in the road. And you'd stop, I know Paul, and oh, stop. I'm gonna watch him just, and the first thing you know, they're under the ground.
Now, Paul really enjoyed this out here then.
Yeah, he enjoyed farming, yeah. And he enjoyed hunting and fishing. And he did a lot of it. And this is Sage Hen Flat. You could go out in there in the fall, toward fall, and I'll tell you, between here and that road down there, I think you could shoot 100 of them and not thin them at all. Now you see that big group of buildings over in there?
Yeah.
I can't be certain, but I'm satisfied. That is Schnitzmeyer's home. That's their home. And from here to there probably is about halfway to the other end of their ranch. About. Again, I'm guessing.
Now,
That's
they
maybe
bought
too.
up when
That may be
people-
too far. They picked up everything and anything.
So they had the money to do it somehow.
Well, had the money, borrowed it. A lot of story behind that too. Fritz was executor, you know. When
Yeah.
that,
But now, are there Schnitzmeyers yet?
yeah.
So it's about Fritz was the
There's-
executor.
yeah.
Because I knew he had run over a long
Yeah.
land.
And one of the all kinds of things happened, you know, after they died. One of the things that happened was that Fritz was called in by one of the bankers to go out there with him, and had some questions to ask. That there was, I mean, he could hold grain. I don't know. Jesus, he had granaries unbelievable in those days. So when they took Fritz out there, the banker told him, was pumping him to find out information. You know, now this granary is bonded and locked, and you know this one and this one, and they're all, and there's a loan on this one to the tune of so much, and loan on that one to so much. There's nothing in them. Not in all of them, but in a lot of them there was nothing in them. And the story goes, I don't know to be truth, but Fritz, he was one of these, he wasn't a bachelor, he was married, had a family, but he wasn't a drinker or drunkard. Work was all he knew. But he'd go to town, as most of them did, once every, and have, you know, a few days. And the story was that some gal in town got rich all of a sudden just about that time. And
Keep him in
just
town.
just before he died, not long before he died, he had taken this loan out, and the money was gone. The wheat wasn't there, and nothing showed in the accounts.
Either way.
No, he'd be here in the winter time. You heard of Northern Lights?
Mm-hmm.
The Northern Lights. Sometimes it was so spectacular. I mean, somebody'd come, or you know, come in the house. You got to go out and see the lights. Go out and see the lights. You went out in straight north. I mean, that whole thing there was just a panorama. You know, there's something going to happen there any minute or any second now. You know, beautiful
Just
light up.
dancing, yeah.
Oh, just dance and light up for on and on and on. I don't know how long it lasted. Now they say they see them once in a while now, but then was not every night.
Was that mostly wintertime or any time?
It was in the wintertime.
In the winter, it's
Yeah,
got
in the
something to
wintertime.
do with the super
Hot and cold, yeah, yeah. And there was a lot of stories then. It was sun was shining off the ice, and I forget what all different. Everybody had their different. No, that ain't it at all. It's something else, you know. All he had, well, he had a Model T, but never used it. He had a stone boat, which I told you was
Yeah.
a 2x6 runner, and some planks on it, and Jenny and the stone boat, and this thing lengthwise was, you know, maybe that long, 6 feet long, and no seat or nothing. You know, this is just a platform here,
Yeah.
and stand on here, you know, with Jenny and the not on roads, cross country, no fences now at that time. When Henry come or left, straight from here, you know.
And it was just a sagebrush and whatnot, so
Just prairie, yeah.
Yeah, although
you had some little roads.
yeah, it was a road because it wasn't the first time there was a track, you know, that you could see.
Yeah.
So it really wasn't
A trail.
a trail. Okay, a trail. Yeah. And that's where Henry back and forth had all. He never worked, never farmed.
Oh, how about the skunks?
Yeah, yeah, I'm getting to that.
Oh.
All he ever did during the year, he would pick up all the skunks around he could get live, catch them alive, and bring them home, and try and keep them around that place until they primed in the wintertime, you know, for fur. And different ones that trapped in that time, and your dad was one, although I don't know if he had Henry do it. They would not skin skunks. They'd bring them to Henry to skin skunks. They'd skin everything else, but the skunks, Uncle Henry, and different ones always said that Henry stunk, that he was, you know,
Yeah.
An odor?
he was clean. He was absolutely clean. I don't know where he got any water there, but he was always clean. Never smelled or never looked dirty. Old bib overalls on, straw hat. Well, one time he was over here, and when Martha and Paul and when Pat was a few years old, and there was a family of skunks moved in, and he caught some, put them in a sack, and there was some babies, so he told Pat, now he says, I didn't get them all. He says, next day or so, he says, if you see them out there, sack and put them in a sack. He says, I'll be back in, you know, 2 days to pick them up. I want to bring them home. So sure as hell, next day out there, Pat sees a baby skunk, get the gunny sack, grab him by the tail, right in the face, in the hair. Boy, I'll tell you, Uncle Henry wasn't welcome for.
popular.
No, he didn't get too popular for quite some time, and they had a hell of a time with her. They to wash it out, and
Oh,
she's in her.
If it gets in your face.
I'll tell you, it was in her eyes and in her hair, bleached her hair, you know, where that stuff hit.
Oh.
So Uncle Henry wasn't.
Aunt Mary and Uncle Otto
Oh, okay.
about the skunks.
One of these trips when Aunt Mary and Uncle Otto might be the trip that I told you when they got stuck down there.
yeah.
Got here, and again, Aunt Mary, oh, it was hot. Oh, God, it was hot. Stayed hot all night. And she wasn't used to that, and I never run into a lady quite like her. I mean, she continually growled and griped and pissed and moaned, you know, but it wasn't real serious, you know, there was no, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Never run anybody like that, you know, so, couple nights of this hot weather, God, the skunk, in the fall, they move, everything migrates, you know,
Yeah.
to some degree. And the skunks would come in here, and Aunt Mary complained, and so Otto told Paul that, you know, she wants to go home, you know, you got to do something. So we went someplace, and coming home, got in the headlights, all nothing but eyes. All over here is nothing but eyes. This was right at the start of World War II, and there was a bar in town, Jumbo Ober, Rainbow Bar. He had 2 sons, and he loved to hunt and fish, and when he bought a gun for himself, he bought 3 of them, one for each of the sons, and when he'd buy a gun, he'd buy 3 guns. And downstairs in the bar was a pool room, and
Yeah.
on the side he had a full rack of all of these guns. 3 of this and 3 of this and 3 of this, and most of them never been used. Beautiful guns. Well, there was a scare that they were going to confiscate all the guns, and he wanted to sell them. And Paul heard about it, and we went down and looked at him, and, well, how much you want? Well, I don't know, 25 20s, 25-20, which years ago was the most popular gun because it was a big rifle, you know, which is a little plinker thing. But my dad, that was the 25-20 was over there. Boy, don't worry about anything, the 25-20 is there. But a 25-20 was $25. Pump, Remington pumps. 12 gauge, Model 12, Winchester, pre-World War II, which I've got one, $50. So I bought one for $50, you know, 14, I don't know how old, helping him, 15. And couldn't wait to use it, you know. Well, when we come in this yard, you know, all these goddamn skunks, Paul says, get your gun. Well, that's fine. Goes and gets the gun. Well, at that time, right along here was small granaries too, not tall, very low granaries. And they were set on just a 2x6 laid here, fur on the ground, and a 2x6, that was the floor joist and then the floor. So there was about, you know, they weren't too wide, you could see through them. Well, when you drove in the yard, these damn skunks, they all went in these holes. So he says, okay, he says, get the shotgun. I went and got the shotgun. So he went on the other side with a flashlight, and he'd shine, and we started here, you know, and he'd shine that light through, and he says, I'll tell you when there's one in the hole, and then when I get out of the road, give it to him. Okay, so he goes, yeah, get that one. Oh, bang, you know, okay. No, go by the next one. Okay, no, go by the next one. Okay, the next one. Shoot him, get, bang. Well, I don't know, we shot a dozen. I'm sure that wasn't exaggerating. At least, you know, before we got to think, when we got done, oh my God. Oh my God, you know, I'm all through, oh, a new shotgun I get to use, you know, and he's all thrilled about keeping Aunt Mary and Uncle out of here because they're going to move, you know. Shoot them skunks, you know. Would we just get done in a hot night? Oh, God. Oh, you know, the odor that, but that wasn't the worst. Then how do you get them suckers? We're going to, you know, it wasn't too far across. You take a stick, you know, and, well, let's wait till morning because, oh, God, you know. In the morning we got out there that hot night, they all bloated. Almost end of story. On top of that, when Aunt Mary and Uncle Otto here, no, they stayed, but I think it was shortened to a great degree. When they were here one time, and I forget who now, put the bomb on it. One of these bombs, you know, when you turn the key on that.
Oh, the smoke,
yeah.
The ignition would light it?
Yeah. Well, somehow, oh, Paul did it. Paul did it. He was a prankster, you know. And he put that damn thing on that damn DeSoto. And somehow, thank God, Otto found it. I don't know if he raised the hood to check the oil or he didn't even know what it was. Never seen one, didn't know what the hell it was, but he knew it shouldn't have been there. And took it out of there. And later, you know, what happened to Otto when he started, you know? And of course, he don't know nothing, you know. He dummies up and boy, if that thing would have went out, that Aunt Mary would have crawled out of here. She'd have been headed for town on foot.
We put one in the guy got one.
There, as we can tell in talking to the present owner, Marcel Thiel and Leroy Keller, the part that the folks farmed and the acreage that he bought from that Marcel Thiel bought from Larry is 1,600 acres. How much of that was an actual homestead that the folks homesteaded, we don't know, or whether they bought some additional land and added on to that. But from them, it's 1,600 acres in one piece, more or less with a kind of a side leg off the side. Schnitzmeyer's, which used to be surround the homestead and was the biggest farmer in the whole area, been kicked around, how many acres, this and that, never really known. But in checking this time with Marcel Thiel, whose our old homestead was once in the center of Schnitzmeyer's, it figured out at one time that they had 36 sections times 640 acres, which came to 23,040 acres. And this coincides with other figures that I've had through the years. That,
36 sections.
36 sections of 640 acres, which is 23,040 acres.
Yeah, and a section's a square mile.
Section is a square mile. Yeah.
So 36 square miles.
36 square miles. Now, Marcel says that that is documented, but he thinks after that there was even a few sections added on that. He's not sure, but he thinks that 36 is documented. But he thinks that they picked up a few after that, even to add to that. The time that we lived here, and when Martha and Paul lived here, and when the Schnitzmeyers, John and his wife, were alive, we had the right and privilege to hunt and fish on any and all of it at any time, almost all of which wasn't fenced other than the section lines. And you could hunt and fish and go from here to what we know at times we were into Canada land, which you don't know when you go across the border or not. But the ice house, was where the ice house was and where the ice came from at Charlie Glor's. I don't know if I'm finished saying that the reason that the ice came from there was he had no cattle. In that area over there was no cattle and the water was clean. This, the pond that we have here and the reservoirs here, there was always...
So you had
The folk-
bacteria in it.
Well,
Because I wondered if maybe it was deeper, so you got bigger.
No, it didn't want to be deep. You see, they wanted to cut the ice. I don't remember here. It seemed to me about a foot thick for handling it and so on.
Yeah.
But it was the main reason was because it was clean water. No cattle stomping in it, and like here the reservoirs
Yeah.
would have been.
Yeah.
When Martha and Paul was here, there's a couple winters that really got bad, and they were winters that it snowed a lot, which it doesn't every year here. Some winters here you got very little snow, very little moisture, and you don't need snow to make it cold. Sometimes the coldest it was there wasn't any snow, but it was cold. And two different times when they were snowed in for a lengthy period of time, Paul had a Caterpillar D2. 2 times he went to town to pick up for the neighbors groceries, mail, medicine, and whatever. And what happened, that they got a thaw, they'd get a thaw, and then a hard freeze, and that Caterpillar would stay up on top of the snow from here to town. Go in one day and come back the next day, and bring mail and that, and take it to... And in later years, when he had the airplane, of course, many times he picked up the same thing, mail and so on, for different ones, and would drop it out here.
Now, did he taxi the plane all the way in here then?
No.
They'd leave it up there
Oh
then?
yeah, right
Oh,
there in
okay.
the field. Yeah, because that was a strip up there that was not too rocky
Yeah.
too bumpy, and yet it was not down low. It was on the kind of a bench. It was not down low where it was sandy, and you can land them suckers, and you can't get them back off the ground there.
You'll
Wheels
just
go on
hold
the
'em.
sand, and you just won't go.
Yeah.
Sometimes means leaving the passengers there if you've got to lighten the plane up and draining all the fuel out of it to
Yeah.
get enough fuel, leave enough fuel in to get back to town, and so on, which wasn't uncommon. A number of times Canadians would miss that turnoff in town and come out this road, and numerous times this house saved. Marcel Thiel was telling a number of them that he told me about that I wasn't aware of. At one time when he had the ranch here, someone broke down, and he thinks they were from California. They'd have to be, because they had shorts on in a snowstorm, and was almost froze stiff when they got in here, walked in here, and took an axe and chopped a hole to where the doorknob was, the lock, to get in the house, and left a note with a check for $50 to pay for the fixing the lock and for any food that they had taken,
So just staying in the house.
for staying in the house, and said that it saved their life. One time when Martha and Paul was here, some guy way up north went in a ditch and got stuck and hiked to here. And at that time, Paul didn't lock things. He never locked things. So he went in the house, and of course they were living here in the summertime, lived in town in the wintertime, and there was some food stuff here. So he ate You could see what cans he had opened and ate, and on top of it, the stinker needed a fire, so he built a fire right in the middle of the living room, and wonder he didn't burn the whole thing down. When they had electricity here, and all that guy had to do was go and turn the main. He checked everything in the house. There was no juice.
Yeah.
Because he had the main switch shut off.
Yeah.
Well, he's not too smart because he didn't go turn the main switch off. Farm from Zurich, where he'd been raising sugar beets out to here,
Yeah.
and coming with 2 wagons, and him and a truck. He had a truck. He had a Ford truck, sugar beet truck, that he brought stuff out here, and his hired man in 1 wagon, and I in another wagon to bring stuff out here. We didn't go up and see the old wagon.
You know, I was thinking about that.
And I told you about the teachers staying here in that one room that was up there. That was the teachers, and the kids' room was the rest of the flock was in the other room.
Oh,
As
the
near as I
teacher's room
remember, there
the
was
one
only
up
2
front.
beds in that thing. I don't remember bed assignment or. And I'm not trying to make a big story out of big things. It was kids, but it would be interesting as hell to have one of them, the other, flash on the wall what they still remember and what stands out in their mind, and then flash mine on the other side. I'm not too sure I want mine flashed up. I was one of the younger.
Oh, you were you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
You
was
were
too
the
young.
kid.
Yeah, you know, the brothers,
little
they
kid.
had really the cream of the crop, you know. And then in addition, some of these Friesen kids, especially, that came over, they were all older than I was. You know, you learned a lot from them. Or they told you a lot. You didn't know whether it was learning or not. You found out later that it wasn't all a learning thing. You should have told you about Fritz icing out at the reservoir. Him making ice.
No.
Well, Fritz, for a number of years during World War II, and I think even shortly after that, he had a contract with the Great Northern Railway. And this still was the roundhouse from east and west for mechanical switching of trains and engines and so on. Plus, it was the icing station. Well, everything was ice then, going east and going west. They filled in refrigerated cars with ice. Well, he had a contract running with them for I don't know how many years to put up ice, and there were ice sheds just below the hill where that buffalo jump is there, which were huge sheds, just a roof and poles on the side. In other words, a pole building.
Yeah.
And this ice was stacked in there, clear up, you know, as high as you could get it, which probably was about 15, 16 feet tall. And then later boarded in on the outside. I don't remember, we didn't have plywood in those days, but it was closed in on the outside. And this was ice for the whole year. They had he had a contract for X amount of tons or sheds to fill, and they had a specification. That ice had to be a minimum of 12 inches and a maximum of like 18 inches, because after that ice gets cracks in it and don't hold together very good. It kind of falls apart. So he had to have machinery, caterpillars and ice saws and men ready, that when that ice is getting 8 inches and 9 inches, and boy, we hope for we need a couple more days of real good weather and we can get to icing, and then we hope it don't keep that cold weather, because you only got a few days. If she gets it, you're all done. So that was a 24-hour-a-day job. Imagine that damn ice and wet, and the clothes they had then and the work they did.
Now, would they pick up ice off the reservoirs?
Fresno, which we'll
the Fresno,
go out and see.
yeah.
Fresno Reservoir, right smack in the middle. A couple times something happened, and you know, when you cut that ice, they'd cut it and they'd make a channel that you cut it in this big pool over here, and then you channel it down to here, and you got a loader that goes up in the thing to load it. Well, in working all night, day and night, they get mixed up, and you can't tell sometimes old ice from new ice, and the new ice was too thin, and somebody that wasn't experienced drove one time a Caterpillar, and it went down, which the next summer they had to get, I don't know, somehow. It mustn't have been deep, because Fresno is deep. Divers don't go in there. And that was quite a challenge. I think it was a challenge to him to get this work done, you know.
Yeah.
And he got certain.
So he was doing that as a young man then.
Oh yeah, yeah. This was after the coal mining thing now,
Yeah.
and just prior to the gravel thing, going into the gravel business. The equipment he had for that icing fit into that.
So more.
So that's a one-holer one, huh?
It is now, but it's kind of a manufactured thing now that's in there.
Oh,
That's
okay.
not what was used.
That's
that
not
was,
what's real.
It's not the real thing at all.
Boy, in the winter, oh no, you used to bet like one of those chamber pots in the winter, and because you didn't go out there in the middle of the night.
No, and one pot for all of upstairs. I can't remember that either, you know. Oh, that's not unusual. This is pretty typical clouds like that. Ain't even a shower.
Actually, it feels kind of good. It's cool.
Yeah, yeah, it does. It helps it out. I don't know.
Hopefully that cat's been eaten most of the mice.
I wasn't worried about the mice. Oh, you mean so the rattlesnake doesn't have
Yep.
anything to eat?
Okay.
Of course, now if he this is one of the wagons that you
Well, I can't be positive, Gene, but
there's a good chance of it.
I'm relatively sure that, and Paul never had, used or had use for wagons. I would just imagine that thing was drug out here and set. And that's its last mile, would be my guess. Right in this flat here. Just that flat piece there. From here up to that little knoll over and back. That's the potato patch.
I wonder what your dad saw when he come out here and looked at this place. If he foresaw that might be a good place. You know, what was different on it compared to anything else he looked at. You know.
Well, I kind of think that he had all kinds of wild ideas comparing it to where he had come from, not just from the old country, but over in the Bitterroot Valley, of a potential possibility of owning my own place and building my own house, and this is all mine.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, now, and did they spend a couple years over there? You know,
Yes, as far as I know. To the best of my knowledge, it was a couple of years. Yeah.
yeah. And when you find out, work and find out that you're able to earn your own land.
Yeah, I mean the wildest dreams, And then along with that, the letters that I'm telling you about, the poetry letters that was written to my mother, and
God, that had to be.
Gloria's Reservoir. And just to the left about, you can see is kind of a strip of green there to the left, which never used to be there. That's where they've been dumping rock, and then hasn't been worked, and then finally some birds crap and reseed that whatever it is, I don't know, growing, and weeds and that. It looks like that reservoir is long, but it's very small. His shack would have been about halfway between that tree on the right and the last of the green on the left. It wasn't at the reservoir, it was some distance away, and he had a hand-dug well just like across the street. There was a dry place you could park in front of his, and just a little ways away was a well, hand-dug well, and next to that a lot of little seashells, little clams, and
Oh, the white,
yeah, well, the actual shells that you could see.
Yeah.
At different times when you was there, a good rain, would bring these out and would be standing free. We pull. I mean, this in here, you wait till you get over
with
the
a horse, the gumbo would have been a really tough thing. You needed to.
A horse would sit there and he'd spin his wheels like anything else. There's just no traction or no.
Now, how many horses did you guys have? Because I mean, that's what you.
I don't remember. I don't know.
I mean, mean, was it team 2 when they worked?
Team was 2, you know, except for breaking. And breaking, that when they broke new ground, again the neighbors would get, you would get together with whoever team up. Yeah. Yeah, it was a joint thing. There was no, even in those days, you didn't make it on your own. It was a work together.
Yeah.
Help each other. This is about the biggest pieces you're going to find of the schoolhouse right here that I put here the other day.
Oh.
Here, this is the schoolhouse.
Okay.
This is where you see these bits of concrete and pieces.
Yeah.
Well, there was somewhat of a foundation under it, which was gone years ago. But the last time we was here, the cistern that I've told you about,
Yeah.
well, it was, that cistern at that time was tall. It had been broke down. Somebody had hammered it down. But it was, I don't know, so tall. But it was still a concrete base.
Yeah.
But they've gone through now, and it's,
Now they're breaking up this in preparation to plant it then, huh?
they'll probably plant winter wheat here, yeah.
Now, have they got a machine that picks up some of these rocks now?
They have a rock picker, oh yeah. But
But
there's some of this, it's just not an ending job,
Yeah. So
You
the
just-
equipment that they have will work around.
Oh yeah. It's all spring loaded now, that you used to hit something and something's going to break.
Yeah.
But everything they got now is spring loaded, that if you don't take it, that it relieves itself. But see, there's a piece of concrete out there. Look at the bricks here.
Yeah.
See here? Bricks,
Yeah.
concrete.
And that's just all
Here's a goodie.
piece of steel from the stove.
Possibly. But anyhow, that cistern set right in here, and the schoolhouse, of course, was right adjacent to it. And that fence line again, you talked about down below, that you went over here someplace and went south and seen somebody. Well, this is where you went. You didn't go on the next road because the next road's in Blaine County, the next county line. And you went right straight down here, and down here over those hills, and on the right-hand side is Montgomery's. And then if you make a 90-degree turn there, you come out on top of that hill where we met Leroy.
Yeah, right where the.
And in
Vince's
between that
was.
road down there and up here, there's 2 reservoirs over there, Vince's and Paul's.
Yeah.
And of course there's reservoirs over here, about a mile straight through here. If you go down, well, no, you can't now. Jesus. You see, it's all worked. If you went
Yeah.
down here before on Prairie, you see these roads, you know right where they're going to go to reservoir. There's another one over there, and there's one up in there, and then north of there, all kinds of them. Some big, some small. Darn horse. This is Nelson the other day at 93. Oh, she remembered North Scar School, and we had so many good times there. And in that thing, there was something on the Cassidy's, the Cassidy's hardware
Yeah,
shop and that.
yeah.
Cedric Cassidy and that.
No, that had.
That's these.
But that was like a son or something.
Yeah, I don't know. There was a whole. I don't.
Alternative.
And they were, I told you, some of that Cassidy bunch that was in the South that well, it was renegades for
Yeah.
years and years and years. Cedric, I can't remember the other. There was 2 of them. There was about 4 Cassidy's names down there. 2 of them was this bunch of Cassidy's here. About where that building is out there was where the post office was. And this is where the school was, right? To hit Blaine County from here, I think it's probably only at the most another 4 sections from here, or 4 miles to hit a Blaine County section line fence there, make a 90-degree right angle there, and you come out in 2/3 of the way to Chinook, between Havre and Chinook. Although now that road has changed over there, it's got some rolling, I don't know, in between a farmland or so on.
Yeah.
We started out on the other day, and I thought could come out here, and I'm sure we could, but I chickened out, yeah. Well, I wanted to go west, and it was going north. Protein. You see, this wheat is
Because there's something right along the road.
This wheat is bread wheat, flour. Washington, Oregon, and most of your wheat is spaghetti and meat, wheat that does not require protein. Bread rots protein. And the main thing in planting grain, you get so much per bushel for a certain count of protein in your wheat. The same as you do in prunes or other crops, the sugar content, if it's, you know, or grapes. Sugar content, you get X amount of dollars here. Well, if it's got more sugar, you get more here. Well, you do that in protein. And what the key to the game is protein. And this dry land, the drier the land, the higher the protein. Reich puts grasshoppers and mice on the fence. Sometimes you'll see a spot, two poles long. There's a grasshopper on every spike.
Oh, so that's his
Left past those trees,
yeah.
your dad and Fritz and Charlie many times have dug badgers and coyotes out of that coulee.